Okay, welcome to this Chem 161 video on some Chapter 2 content, looking at the periodic table. So the periodic table not only lists mass and atomic number information for elements found in their natural state, but also lists and organizes these elements according to their properties. Okay, so let's roughly sketch the periodic table to identify the areas that we need to put some attention. Okay, so roughly speaking, the periodic table looks like this. Okay. And we'll note a couple things to orient us. So we're in the periodic table. A vertical column is what we call a group. Okay, so a group of elements would be expected to perform the same, or the properties would be very similar. And so you can see here that down a column, the elements found in that column would be expected to have similar properties. Okay. Another way we could travel across the periodic table is in the sort of perpendicular to that, so we can have a horizontal kind of row. Okay, so rows are what we're going to call periods. Okay, so the properties may not be all the same as we go across a row, so that we might see periodic type properties or differing properties there, versus a column where we saw the properties being more similar and makes sense to kind of group those. So perhaps that's a mnemonic if you want to help you remember that. But down a column, we have groups in those columns, and a row is a period. Okay, so with that, it follows that our first kind of column, this could be called group 1, Roman numeral 1. And the next column would be group 2, Roman numeral 2, etc. Okay, the next kind of major area of the periodic table is in this area here after group 2. And this area here is what we call the transition metals. Many materials in this area are metallic, like you've experienced in your everyday life, like iron, nickel, gold, other coinage metals like silver, palladium, platinum. And the properties you're familiar with metals are mostly seen in these elements in this area of the periodic table. Okay. Further, elements leading up to a staircase boundary are also listed as metals, but not transition metals, just generally metals. Okay, so elements in here like boron, silicon, arsenic, tellurium, and astatine make up this staircase boundary. And these elements, including germanium, okay, which sits right here, and antimony, Sb, are what we call the metalloid elements. Metalloid. The metalloids. Okay? So all those listed specifically, boron, silicon, germanium, arsenic, antimony, tellurium, acetane, those are all the metalloids. Okay. This is an important kind of set of elements to recognize, because those that are to the left of these, all the way over, help us identify the elements from the periodic table that are metals. Okay, so in another color here, I'll identify the metals. And so we're going to refer to any element from the periodic table in those first two groups, including transition metals, including elements to the left of this staircase boundary, and putting a little legend here. These are the metals. Okay, just generally the metals. When we speak of the transition metals, we are speaking of those found in the rectangular portion of the periodic table only. Okay, so transition metals are known to be in the metals area of the periodic table, and not all metals are transition metals. Okay, hopefully that is clear. So with that staircase boundary, the metalloids, now we have the areas that might be to the right of that staircase boundary. And all these elements are going to be called the nonmetals. Okay, so I'll just kind of shade that area generally. All the elements here are the nonmetals in green. Okay, so far, three major kind of areas. We have a staircase boundary defined by the metalloids. To the left of that, we have metals. To the right of that, we have nonmetals. Okay. Further, continuing our idea of groups, skipping the transition metals, we'll eventually find that there are 8 total columns. So Roman numeral 1 and 2, skip the transition metals. We'll have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. 1, 2, 3, 8. So the last column in the periodic table is group 8. Roman numeral 8. Okay? This column is also known as to list the noble gases. Okay? So in here, the noble gases are found. Okay. The 7th column, right beside it, so not group 8, but 7, up until the staircase boundary, is where we have the halogens. Okay. Bromine, chlorine, iodine, these elements, fluorine, these are the halogens. Okay. So those are 2 special groups. And jumping way back to group Roman numeral 1 and group Roman numeral 2, we have some additional names for those groups. So the first column, group Roman numeral 1, group 1, these are the alkali metals. Okay? Things like sodium, lithium, potassium, these are the alkali metals. And similarly, the second column, so the one right beside it, has some special elements that we see often in chemistry and biochemistry and biology. And the name is going to be similar, so we're going to call these the alkaline earths, or sometimes referred to as alkaline earth metals. Okay, so I'll add that in parentheses. But you see the word earths is important to distinguish it from group 1. So the alkaline earths, or the alkaline earth metals, is the second column, the second group in the periodic table. Okay, so those are the major territories of the periodic table, and you're responsible for knowing all the terms here. So knowing what a group is, knowing what a period is, knowing where the transition metals are in the periodic table, knowing the staircase boundaries. So it is a perfect staircase boundary starting from boron, walking across the periodic table all the way down and including At, the element At. And don't forget to include germanium and antimony, Sb, and you've got your metalloids. Okay, so 2 additional elements there across that perfect staircase boundary starting at boron. Okay, so given a periodic table, start with boron and walk your way down to acetine At, and don't forget to include germanium and antimony, Sb, and you will know your metalloids. That helps us identify the boundary between metals, shown as the red territory, and the nonmetals, shown as the green territory. And then 4 special columns in here: alkali metals, group 1, alkaline earths, group 2, halogens, group 7, and noble gases, group 8.